Oh, I wanna start this one today. Maybe I should prefix this, right? They're gonna be a lot of people that differ with me on this. Not stressed about that. That's just because they're wrong. And this includes the two offers. It includes the two offers. But I mean, the fans are always right, right? The fans are always right. And I'm the biggest fan, so I'm the biggest right. Boom. Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, miscreants, mollifiers over there in the corner. See you mollifying. Welcome to today's programming. I am the anonymous librarian. You, you, the viewer. That's what I'm referring to. I'm not talking to the rest of the people behind you, like and seeing what is this guy? Why is he looking on his phone while he's sitting on a bus with headphones and nonsense? Never mind. I'm talking to you, viewer. I forgot what I want to say, but you. I want to tell you what you can call me. You can call me L. You don't have to go, hey, Mr. Anonymous Librarian. Nobody has time for you typing so slowly, you guys. You don't have skills, man. You don't have skills. So just say it, L, L, L. 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 Do you know? Can you say it? L. Okay. Never mind. I have no intention of ranting today. I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like going on a rant. But today I am gonna. I like that. Today. Today. It's Pac-Man, baby. It's Pac-Man. Legend. More legendary than you, that's for sure. You're not a legend. In fact, you're nobody, bro. I bet you're nobody. You're nobody. It's okay. Most of us are nobodies. It's fine. It's fine. Some of us can be impressive nobodies. Like myself, I'm an impressive nobody. And then there's I want to say the average, but let's say the common nobody. That's what you fall under the common nobody. That's the bird type that you are. The common nobody found most places in the world. Not so much in Antarctica. Very few, what do you call them? Common nobodies in Antarctica. So yeah, if maybe you know, maybe you don't, maybe you listen, maybe you never listen to what I say. Well, if you've paid any shred of attention, if you paid any shred of what? I don't know, there was a word. If I had any shred of your attention in the last month or so, you would have probably realized by now my favorite fantasy series of all time, and probably any book series. There's nothing. There's not any historical series or anything I've read it's equal to this. Is Malazan, and I don't say and I'm not saying Book of the Fallen. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying everything. Malazan, everything. The Esselmont books, the Erickson books, all of it. The prequels, the sequels, everything. I need my coffee today. Okay, that's good. So there's always been like a reading order. What should be the proper reading order for manners? How should you start? Well, I thought I'd give my 2 cents on this because I've read the series twice. I also didn't start it in order, so I think that that makes a difference, and I will justify my things as I go along. What happened? Tell you my tale, the parts that I find interesting. Will you find it interesting? I don't care. I'm here to educate you. I'm here to help you on your journey. This is a journey you're about to take. If you're watching this, you're probably interested in starting Malazan, and you are wanting to take this journey, and I'm here to help you on this journey. So be grateful. Just be a little bit grateful for once in your life. Huh? Because I'm actually going to give you good advice. Most people on this subject, terrible advice. They have no idea what they're talking about. Idiots. 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 Yeah, some of them have doctors, degree, PhDs and stuff, doctorates. That doesn't change the fact. I here with no PhD am a genius. Genius. I am a genius in Malazan. Now, somebody said, but oh, wait a minute, you've only read it twice. Okay, yeah, I've listened to it on audio as well once. But that's 3 times. I mean, these people are 14 or so. Yeah, but by the time you read the thing 14 times, you're not objective anymore. I'm still objective. That's the difference. That's why I am in a perfect space to tell you this. Now, okay. I'm not going to focus today on the prequel series or the sequel series because they're not done. Neither of them are done yet. I think you can't really go to start placing them in this until then. What I am going to focus on is the Book of the Fallen series by Stephen Erickson. If you don't know this, I don't know why you're watching this video. And Novels of the Malazan Empire by Ian C. Esselborn. Because these 16 books together they dovetail into each other and form a coherent story of the whole Malazan world during this certain time period. So I will be focusing on that 16 books. Maybe mention the novellas. Maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see if we get there. Yeah. But yeah, okay. So, we should probably get into this, right? Oh, how long do you want to? Now let's start. And I think from the beginning I'm already going to be like, okay, I'm sure I've spoiled this on the thumbnail already. Just to get some rage baiters, just to rage bait some people to come. But I mean, I have a point. This wasn't clickbait. I have a really good reason for this. You should start where I started, with Malazan Book of the Fallen. And that is with Midnight Tides. Midnight Tides. Well, even not Book of the Fallen, the whole thing. Novels of Malazan. Midnight Tides. Midnight Tides. Midnight Tides. Now, if you know, you know. This is the 5th book in the series. Now, who starts with the 5th book in the series? Oh, Malazan is not like any other series, right? The books are kind of, a lot of the books, there's an overarching story, but at the same time, they're also really disconnected with different characters. Besides, Midnight Tides and the event in Midnight Tides takes place, I've seen people suggest it takes place before Guardians of the Moon, but I think it's probably more at the same time as Guardians of the Moon. But it takes place on a completely different continent, and only one character that we've, only 2 characters that we've met this far in the series, in the 4 books in Malazan Book of Fallen, predating, what, Midnight Tides? Yeah, predating Midnight Tides, show up in here. And it's also the one in a very small manner, and the other one in a bigger manner, but it's kind of because it's his story. So it doesn't matter. There's nothing in here that spoils anything. It doesn't spoil anything of the previous 4 books. It is really a story completely set on its own, taking in a different road. It's kind of like, Malazan works kind of not like, it starts as book 1 and 2. There's like different points where it starts, and this is one of the points. It's like, and I will say there's 3 points in 3 different continents. Genebacus, which starts in Gardens of the Moon. 7 Cities, which starts at, well, not 7 Cities, Deadhouse Gate. Oh yeah, 7 City story that starts in Deadhouse Gate. And then the Lefer continent story, which starts in Midnight Tides. And you're not going to, nothing in the first 4 books are going to be spoiled for you. There was one thing that I noticed that I'd missed because I'd read this book first. And I was kind of lucky. I'll tell now why this was the first book I read. It's also how I got into it. But there's one thing that I missed that you would have recognized immediately about this kingdom of Leferi in this, which I only got on the second reread. On my second reread, realized it when I went through it. Like, so they're actually connected in But if you remember and you read them close enough, because years went by between me reading the books, for reasons I was struggling to find the copies of the books, and I'll get into that. But yeah, so this is not going to spoil anything for you. And the reason why I say this is the best starting point is because you're kind of halfway into Erickson's writing journey of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. And the writing style in here, and his writing does change as it goes along, gets more experience, and it gets better, but it changes. It starts great and it gets better, but it changes a little bit. And the way it does. And I think what Midnight Tides does perfectly is how it's kind of the perfect midpoint in the writing style of the earlier books, especially Dead House Gates and especially Gardens of the Moon. You immediately recognize things are changing from Gardens of the Moon to Dead House Gates. And then what follows after this in Bone Hunters, Reaper Scale, and those ones, this is kind of the perfect combination of what happens after it and what happens before it. So if you like this book, if this book really works for you, then I'm pretty confident to say the 4 books before it will work for you, and the 4 after it will work for you, or the 5 after it will work for you. That is why I think this is the best, because this is kind of like, if you like this book, you probably will like the whole series. And another thing, what makes this one, people often complain now, Malazan's confusing or you don't know what's going on. Not true. But it often does tell its story more like historical events, so it doesn't necessarily follow a straight line from this to that in the story. It's a very meandering story. This one is less like that. This is more a straightforward 2 kingdoms being set up against each other, squaring off storyline than any of the other books. So that also makes it easier to understand. I mean, I read this when I must have been 14 or something. I was young when I read this. And I understood it. I think I must have been 14 when I read it. 14 or 15. Something like that. And it made sense to me. It made enough sense to me. And there's wild magic and stuff that they don't explain to you, but you love it because you get into it. Say, oh, this is a completely different. It feels like looking to a different world. So yeah, start here. Oh, and by the way, how did I end up with this as my first book? So I had loved the Harry Potter movies, the first two. The first 2 were out at that point. Chamber of Secrets and Philosopher's Stone. Yeah, no, I just said them in the wrong version. Never mind. So for my birthday, my parents who wanted me to read, and I was not a reader at that point, and I think this is around 12 or 13. So it's maybe even a little later. But they were like, oh, no. Yeah, I think I probably was 14. It was either late 13 or 14, something like that. And they were like, no, we need to get this kid to read. He likes Harry Potter. Let's get him the 3rd one, Azkaban, Prisoner of Azkaban. And see what and I got it for my birthday. And I said, okay, let me try and read it. Because, I mean, I did like this. And I fell in love with reading. And the Harry Potter books are very great for that, for getting into reading. So then I read all the Harry Potters that were available. No more were available then. It was only till Order of the Phoenix that I could. So, and then I wanted some other stuff to read. Yeah, and what did I get? So I went to do fantasy. Like, oh, I love fantasy. I want more fantasy. I'd already fallen in love with Lord of the Rings. The movies were out. It was awesome. No. What am I going to watch? So I got like 4 fantasy books that I really wanted to like, seemed interesting to me. This was one, Midnight Tides. I'm not sure. Let's stand up. Another one was, this is the wrong book. Dragons of a Fallen Sun, Is that? Dragons of a Fallen Sun by Hickman and Weiss. Yeah, Tracy Hickman and Margaret. Is it Margaret? Yeah, Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. This is a Dragonlance book, the first in a War of Souls volume. So I picked up like 4 fantasy books and I took them to my dad and I'm like, yeah, I want one of these and so the reason my dad chose these 2 and says, no, I can buy these 2 instead of the others had like goblins and orcs on them, and my dad said, oh, these at least look like human beings on it. Which these are technically Idor. But yeah. So my dad was like, no, this at least look like humans. Let's try. I don't want him to get into the weird stuff. Never mind, knowing if you go into these ones, they are high fantasy. They have everything. Minotaurs. Yeah, so, and that's how I got into this. And like, so, I've never heard anybody suggest this for somebody that's 14 years old. And I will admit that my first reading, it was slow, but I never felt like bored by it. Although I read it slow, trying to take it out, I was learning to read it, but I never felt bored. And the character of Trul Sengar and Fidel Bedic, and they're kind of two of the main characters on opposite sides of this of the story. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you'll find out when you get there. They were by far the most engaging and interesting characters I'd ever met in any of the books. They blew out any of the characters I met in Harry Potter, and I loved Harry Potter stuff. And it always stuck with me. Nothing stuck with me like this. I mean, I'll be honest, I did buy all three in the end, and I finished this trilogy. I can remember almost nothing of these books. And I remember enjoying them, but I can remember almost nothing. Midnight Tides, I remembered. Now, okay, enough. You got over that, you said, okay, you talked for 20 minutes about where you started. Okay, let's go. Let's move on. Where do you go then from Midnight Tides? If it's such a perfect one, where do we go then? Well, are we going to go into the crippled god now? No, now it gets more regular. More straightforward. But I am going to interweave a little bit between Esselmon's and Erikson's work, and there's a reason for that. And I think it's better the sooner you learn Esselmon's stuff, because if you read too much of Erikson and then get into Esselmon, it's going to be a bit jarring. The writing style and the differences. So and I think to get the maximum story, you have to kind of little interweave it. So I feel the next one this is the obvious one. You go, let's hold up the first two. You have Gardens of the Moon is the first one in Malazan Book of Fallen, and then you have Nine of Knives is the first book in Novellas of Malazan's Empire by Ian C. Esselmon. Now, if you read this one first, this one does take place before this one, but it does spoil something that's still hidden in this one, right? So I will still say, read this first. Go into Gardens of the Moon. And then, I mean, if you've got through Midnight Tides, this is going to be straight up. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. You're going to have fun. And from there, then I will actually, after Gardens of the Moon, I will actually go Night of Knives. Even though it came out later, I will go Night of Knives, because the things you find out here get spoiled in early on in Dead House Gates in any case. So I feel like, yeah, read it then. And then those characters, certain two characters, are going to have a bit more meaning for you and understanding behind them if you've read this first. And it's going to give you some revelations about Gardens of the Moon. And it's spoiled early on in Dead House Gates. So you might as well read here and discover it here for the first time. What is great about this and why you should go Esselmon this early is, this is a very, Midnight Tides has a lot of characters, big, and Gardens of the Moon also. A lot of characters, big crazy stories, everywhere storylines. Nine of Knives is a very short book compared to all the other ones. And it has very few, it only has, I believe there's 3 point of view characters, and most of the time you're only looking at maybe 4. I think there might be 4 or 5. But some of them are just quick flashes of stuff. There's 2 that you see a lot of this. So it's basically 2 main POV characters. And it takes place over one night in the city of Malaz on Malaz Island. And it's fun. And it introduces the characters. No, definitely go this before Dead House Gates. Because then you get a sense of Esselmon. And it's kind of a nice break from the big Doom-like other books in this series. So I already said it. After that, you go to Dead House Gates. Now, I've heard some people suggest you should read Memories of Ice before Dead House Gates, because Memories of Ice is technically a direct sequel to Gardens of the Moon, while Dead House Gates takes place on a different continent, and these two take place at exactly the same time. But I feel like there's stuff that's quickly revealed in this one that takes longer to be revealed in this one. And I still feel like it's better to get used to this. Okay, we're on a different continent thing. If you've done this one, then you've kind of like been to all 3 the major starting points in the thing. And especially if you put in Nine of Knives in between, because that takes place on Malaz Island, which is also a very crucial place where a lot of things happen. So then you've kind of jumped to all three of the major locations, all four of the major locations in a lot of the stories. So yeah, I will still say do this before you go into Memories of Ice. But if you do it the other way around, it's fine. I don't think it's going to be that big a difference. Some things are going to be, something that's revealed later in this is going to be revealed very early in this, but it wouldn't ruin the overall experience. And if you really just feel like, oh, I want to stay with these characters in Guardians of the Moon and see what happens to them, then yeah, sure, do this one first. It might also work because the reason for that, even though I say do the Dead Gate first, the reason it might be better to do this one first is because what comes after that is House of Chains. And House of Chains is a direct sequel to Dead Gates. So that could make that, there's a good case to be made for that. Look at my throat becoming empty here. House of Chains. But yeah, now there's another reason, and this is a big thing for me. One of the main reasons I feel Midnight Tides has to be read first, or at least you can actually kind of, if you decide, no, I am definitely starting with Guardians of the Moon, I don't care what you say, you crazy person. Great, I'll allow it. I don't mind that. I don't mind it. One thing I do feel you should do, I feel you should definitely read Midnight Tides before House of Chains. Even though Midnight Tides is the 5th book and House of Chains is the 4th book. Because House of Chains spoils Midnight Tides. It spoils the major, there's a big square off between two kingdoms. And when I read Midnight Tides, it was now, okay, I was young. Maybe this stuff was more obvious. But it still feels like either side could win, even until the end. There's just the way Erickson plays it like you're never sure. Yet, this book spoils, the first thing that happens in this book already spoils who won in Midnight Tides and who was the victorious kingdom there. So that's why I feel like you should really read Midnight Tides to get more out of it before House of Chains. House of Chains is, by the way, and there's another reason you should read the House of Chains. A lot of people, House of Chains in some ways, a lot of people get angry at this book. And I love this book. I love all of these books. There's not a bad one in one. But a lot of people get angry with this book. And because there is something that happens in the end. And the farther you get away from it, the more you can accept it and the more you appreciate what happened. But the moment it happens to you in the way it happens to it, it's harsh. So you kind of want to go straight from this one, because this one kind of, and it works kind of great as a part one to what is really the sequel to, what's it, House of Chains, the Bone Hunters. You can really feel like these two, more than any, it's like a part one, part two of the same story. At least half of this book is the end of that, the story that was in that book. Now the light goes. What am I supposed to do? And this is, you'll often see this book very high on people's list of their favorite Malazan book. Ooh, look at the light getting so dark now. So of course the clouds will come and stuff. Probably gonna get a light soon again. Sorry guys. What do you want me to do? I can't do anything. I can't stop. I can probably do something, buy lights and stuff. I'm not gonna do that. Why should I spend money to make stuff look good for you? Huh? You're not spending money on me. You're spending money on me, huh? Any case, this, you kind of, the way House of Chains ends, you kind of have to pick this up immediately afterwards just to get into see, wait a minute, how does this stuff resolve? What happens? It's not that it doesn't really end on a cliffhanger, but it's like, yeah, there's a lot of things you want to just like, okay, we need, and you will get to it. They work perfectly together. You'll get to it when it's, if you take House of Chains together with Bone Hunters, it will just work beautifully. And Bone Hunters is often considered, it's usually on the higher level of people's ratings. A lot of people's favorite is the Bone Hunters in the series. Okay, so from there, we, for the first time in a long time, we're actually going to jump to Mr. Esselmont again and give us a little bit Return of the Crimson Guard, which is his one big one. This is one big one. And I think since Bone Hunters is such a very big one, getting into this afterwards is actually great because it won't feel as daunting, it's not as big. This book is crazy though. There's so many characters. I think this must be the book with the most characters in, and they are everywhere. But why this one after Bone Hunters? This one is kind of a direct sequel to Bone Hunters. There's like two direct, but And a lot of the characters and fallout from Bone Hunters continues in here. And the Malazan Empire and the stuff that happens there. It takes place on Quantali mostly, although there's a lot of it jumps around a lot, and it ties that story together, and it's brilliant. And yeah, this is a book that often gets, and I feel anybody that's read this book only once probably don't. But if you read this book a second time, then you realize what Esselmon was going for and everything. It is so, and the payoffs it gives to the story, to the loose threads that are left at the end of Bone Hunters on this side of the world. It's amazing what's going on with Malazan Empire. Because the Book of the Fallen moves to a different way. So after that, we can go back to, I believe, let's go back to Book of the Fallen. And we pick up Reaper's Gale. Reaper's Gale is crazy. This is the other direct sequel to Bone Hunters in that case. So they kind of work. You can switch that in Return of the Crimson Guard around, but I will say go. And by this time, the storylines are starting to converge more and stuff from the worlds. But yeah, never mind that part. Let me not try and before I get accused of course. No, I think like so. Return of the Crimson Guard, you go into Reaper's Gale. You can do Reaper's Gale before Return of the Crimson Guard, but I think Return of the Crimson Guard works so well as just tying up all the dangling ends on one side of the world after the events of the Bone Hunters. And this one is tying up the other, or showing the other way, that the other, because there's a all I'll say is there's a split in Bone Hunters where one group of characters stay here and one group of characters leave to another place. That's all you need to know. And this one follows the one sequel to the one and the other one sequel to the other one. This book is so good. This is a book that gets hate that it doesn't deserve. And I think anybody that reads this a second time will love it. It will just shoot up your rankings of the thing. That book so good. Now, should we go Esselmont again? No. I think, and this reason is, go Toll the Hounds. Yeah. Toll the Hounds. Okay, we're going back to Junibakus here, if you want to know. For the first time since Memory Survives. Yeah. Then you pick up, I say Reaper's Gale to Toll the Hounds, different content again. But this ties up a lot of things. And there's a reason I want to say this, because, so I think you should do this one first. And then Stone Wielder by E.N.C. Esselmont. These two books are not related in any way. But there's another book that comes after Stone Wielder, Orb Scepter Throne, from E.N.C. Esselmont, that is a direct sequel to Toll the Hounds. It takes place in the same city as Toll the Hounds, and the events that after Toll the Hounds, the events that are actually a lot of the events that are talked about coming in this one happens in this one. Now then you say, but shouldn't I read those two together then? No. And I'll say this, the last 200 pages of this could be, and I think for some they are the best part of everything in Malazan. And they are really that good. They're spectacular. It's spectacular. And going from that straight into this, from if you're going straight from Ericsson's Darujistan into Esselmont's Darujistan with many of the same characters, I think it's going to be jarring. I think it's going to be too jarring. I think you should go to Stone Wielder first, which takes place on a continent we've never been before, Corelry. Coral, and which is and called Fist as well. You'll figure it out. And because it's so different from Toll the Hounds, and it will feel like something different you're reading, and it's because it's different characters, different everything, and you get used to Esselmont's voice and how he writes again. Esselmont's very like, this is him. He doesn't. It just goes, and it's event after event after event. This book also has one of the greatest. It has a sea battle that goes into a landing. On a sea battle, it turns into a, what do you call them, an amphibious assault. That is insanely good. It's so good. Yeah, my favorite of all the battle scenes that Esselmont wrote. And if I take all the battles in it, this will still rank very high, that scene. And then the book's just great. It's great because we're really learning a new continent with its own weird stuff going on there. And you get into Esselmont's writing style again, which I feel if you've got Esselmont's cadence and then you go into what is really the sequel to Tall the Hounds in many ways, and you already got his like cadence and stuff of Esselmont again, it works better and will be less jarring than going straight from Tall the Hounds into this. But then you already recognize all the characters again, and it's such and how it pays off and the things that they put in that was coming in Bone Hunters and how it ends up here. Right. Now, from there, now we go to the big finale. The big finale. I will say this. Let's do this while we here right now. Let's quickly talk about the novellas. I feel like at any time you feel like any of these stories are getting too heavy, or you want something shorter and just straightforward and funny, you can read the novella. So this is the first collection of 3, this is the second collection of 3. I will only say, the only thing I'll say, you can put them in anywhere, just my advice is do it after Memories of Ice, because the 3 main characters in these are introduced in Memories of Ice first, and I think it's a good introduction there to learn to get them, and then go into their stories here, and learn more about them, and then have fun with them. And they are like really great, nice, quick breaks between everything. Yeah, that's what I want to say. Okay, now we're going into the big finale. We do Dust the Dreams Boom first, and you follow Dust the Dreams up, straight up with the Crippled God. And you should be so lucky that all these books are out already. Not like us who had to wait for it, because having to wait after this book and the ending of this book for this book. Because no 2 other books feel more like a part 1 and part 2 than these 2. They feel really like, it's really like one epic story, more than any of the other ones that are taking place in here. I would say if these 2 books, if you were allowed to consider these 2 books one book, then this would without a doubt be my favorites in the series. It would be my favorite. Make them one book and it's my favorite book in the series by far. And you know what? But then, so you read them, Dust the Dreams, The Crippled God, and you follow this up with Blood and Bone by Ian C. Esselmont, because Blood and Bone, you can't read it before those. That would be a bad choice, because this does also relate to the events in The Crippled God. And this is placed on another new continent that we've never been before, Yakaruku. And I really hope we get more novels in Yakaruku, because this might be my favorite setting. And there's only this one book in it. I loved this setting so much. This one and Crippled God is taking place at exactly the same time, and there are events this explains some of most intimately stuff that's happening in there, and you kind of have to know what happens in the Crippled God to fully appreciate what's happening here. And this kind of book is clearly written with you accepting that you know what's happened in the Crippled God. And the 3 of them together, Dust the Dreams, the Crippled God, and Blood and Bone, work like this perfect explosion of climax to this epic 16-book series written by 2 characters that are 2 series that are actually one series that dovetail into each other. Amazing. So then there's only one book left, and that is A Sail. A Sail is the last book by Ian C. Esselmont. This takes place at least a little bit of a while after the events of Blood and Bone and Crippled God. And it does work as a great finish to the whole series, especially the things that happen at the very end of this book. Kind of ties everything nice, and a nice bow that isn't a nice bow, because this is a world with a lot of moving parts and a lot of things happening. And I mean, there's still sequel series gonna come and stuff. But yeah, it works great as that. So then A Sail should be the last one. And think of A Sail, don't think of A Sail like a climax, think of it like an epilogue. Think of it very much, and I believe that Erickson and Esselmont also kind of say it feels like it's kind of like an epilogue to the whole story. Yeah, that's mine, and that's it. That's how you have to read them. If you've done that, so I would suggest that first, because the other ones have not been completed yet. The prequel series and the sequel series. Now, after that, you can either decide to get into. Honestly, if you want to go then into one of the sequel series, you can either start with Dance's Lament and by N.C. Esselmont, The Past Descendancy, or you can take the first book, Forge of Darkness, the Carcass trilogy, or you can go with the first book in the Witness trilogy, The God Is Not Willing. And then you can kind of choose which one, which series you really want to follow. I will say this though, and I do think, especially on the side, I think the Esselmont one you can kind of just go through from one to the end. You can read them straight. Like you can go. Yeah, you can definitely just go Dance's Lament, Deadhouse Gates. Deadhouse Landing. Sorry, Deadhouse Gates. Kellenwitz Reach, and Forge of the Image. You can just read them all in a row, no problem. Hey, let me know this. But I will say this: when it comes to Erickson's the prequel and sequel series, though you can read if you want to, The God Is Not Willing before or after those, I would suggest reading The God Is Not Willing maybe between Forge of Darkness and Fall of Light, and even after it, because Kingdom of. But what you have to definitely read after Fall of Light, which you have to read after Forge of Darkness, is this: the second book in Witness, No Life Forsaken, because there's events and characters in Fall of Light, the second book in the Carcass trilogy, this big boy, that show up in here, and like in they what happens to them gets paid off in this book of all places. So you really should, you can, but I mean, I would suggest getting through these ones first if you plan to read them. If you decide, no, I just want the sequels, that's much shorter books, up to you. But then you are going to miss out. And why do you want to miss out? Take my word for it. Do what I say, man. Just do what I say. I'm the expert here. I'm the expert. Who are you? You want to go on this journey, and I'm trying to help you. And now you're arguing with me. And don't tell me no, the office said read them in publication order. Of course they're going to say that. Of course, their office, they're supposed to say read them in publication. Otherwise, what would be their justification for doing it like that? What would be the justification for publishing in that order if they don't say that? That's my opinion. I love these guys, by the way. I'm just being extra daft for no reason. Erickson and Esselbot, the world they created, by far the greatest. It's so awesome. There's nothing like it, right? There's nothing like it. And some things a little bit like it, but man, my love for Malazan. And I think I should definitely I'm wondering if I should do a ranking of them. I do want to make a ranking video of like, but yeah, that's also like, it's like shooting your favorite. You have to choose between your kids, right? Your favorites, which one? And they're all my favorites. Now I have to be mean about some of them, But I do kind of want to make a ranking from my favorite to my least favorite, which is honestly my least favorite book in this series. It's a 4-star read already. It's a 4-star read already, and I just love everything. And every book gives a little more of this world. I just love it. I just love it. Now there is 2 books coming out very soon, and even the ones after, it's probably not going to be that long. From both, one from Esselmont and one from Erickson. They might both be coming out this year. I believe the Erickson is definitely coming out this year. The Esselmont one might be coming out this year. Not sure. So I don't know if I should wait for the ranking until then. But even if I do a ranking now, I'm not even sure I should do No Life Forsaken, because No Life Forsaken came out last year. And I've only read it once, and I feel like I have to read it a second time at least before I can properly put it in a ranking with these ones, with the rest of them. But yeah, but hopefully that will be somewhere in the future. We can look at that. Well, I mean, and that's it. There's nothing else I want to tell you today. I've done what I had to do. I've taught you. I've educated you. I hope you appreciated this beautiful education. Remember, start at Midnight Tides. If you don't want to start at Midnight Tides, I will forgive you if you want to start at Gardens of the Moon. I will not forgive you, however, if you read Midnight Tides after House of Change. You have to read Midnight Tides before House of Change. That is what I'm saying. Listen to me. I've done this before. This is good advice. It's good advice. Yeah? Okay. Enough, okay. I'm happy you're here. I hope you're happy I'm here. I hope this is, listen, the one thing I will say, whatever you choose, even if you decide to start with the crippled god, I don't care. But go on this journey. Go on this journey. There's no journey like it. There's no journey like it. This is one of the greatest journeys. In storytelling, this is the best journey I've ever been on in my life. I enjoyed it so much. Yeah, and it took longer than it should have because I got Midnight Tides and then I wanted to, and I said, okay, but this are the books before, so I wanted to get Gardens of the Moon. You know how long it took me to find a copy of Gardens of the Moon, but then, because I could always get, there was always like Dead House Gates and Memories of Ice, they always had copies of those. But the Gardens of the Moon one, and like the first time I found one, there was a printing, there was like it was a mistake, printing mistake. Some of the pages, like in 100, and luckily I was skimming through it like in the bookshop because I kind of saw something looked weird, and there was the binding had gone wrong, and like 50 pages had been cut off at the top, and it was like this like bigger into it. And I showed it to the person at front, and said, "Oh yeah, no, you definitely can't buy this book." I said, "But you have another copy?" Nope. And it was another year before I finally found a Gardens of the Moon copy. I read like Midnight Tides I read like when I was 14 or 15, and Gardens of the Moon only like when I was 18. That's how long it was, and it was like infuriating having to wait those long between those. But at least like Harry Potter books and stuff were coming out. And then I read Dead House Gates when I was 19, and I finally I got all of them, and I just went, and I went, yeah. And then which one? I had to wait for, no, Dust of Dreams. I think I just finished all the hounds when Dust of Dreams came out, but then Dust of Dreams was when I got up. So I have to also wait that, was it a year or 2 years or a year and a half wait for The Crippled God. Yeah. That was a long wait. But it was worth it. And it was a great journey. And I wish I had gotten into that. I was a lot of people get put off by the Esselmont books at the beginning, and I was kind of angry with myself because I was like, okay, yeah, I enjoyed Night of Knives, but it's not Erickson. It's not Erickson. It's so much smaller. That's actually done, and if you start to appreciate that actually. And then Return of the Grumsnatcher, I enjoyed it, but you kind of. And it was, the problem was for me. I just didn't want to see where he was going because I was a young guy. I was like, no, Ericsson's my guy. Esselmont, I can see that you are adding stuff, but Ericsson's my guy, and I love them so much. And now I don't even feel the same. And it was only like, and I still feel that I remember reading like, yeah, I like it, but still Ericsson's my guy. It was only at the opposite before, I was like, yeah, yes, Esselmont, I love what you're doing. I love it, and now Opposite of Thrones is not even one of my favorites in that series anymore. It's like, which is funny that that's the one that really pulled me fully into the Esselmont. Blood and Bone. Blood and Bone. Blood and Bone from E.N.C. Esselmont. Wow. Okay. I've said my piece on the Malazan. Listen, let's end it here, right? So listen. Let me drink a little bit more of my water. Too much talking. You realize I got really excited to talk about Malazan. Like just bursting out of me. I've been obsessed with this stuff. Okay, never mind that. I am the anonymous librarian. You can call me Al. But I would appreciate it if you don't call me at all. Although what? If you want to comment, if you want to disagree with me in the comments about here, fine. Just know you're wrong. You're wrong, I'm right. You're wrong, I'm right. Boom, 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 boom.